Hello, folks. Welcome to Got Your Back Morning Live Stream Edition, brought to you by our good friends over at Mr. Dirk. The Oilers continue to rock and roll. Man, this team is playing some fantastic hockey heading to the postseason, aren't they? Big win over the San Jose Sharks because it put 2 points in the bank, but also because it got Connor McDavid to 150-plus points. Jason Strudwick standing by. We're going to talk about a big night, big season for McDavid. Take a look at the playoff races, where the Oilers are sitting, what is possible. We'll dig into the quality that the team's putting forward right now as well. Lots to come here on Got Your Back. Brought to you by Mr. Dirk, located just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. They are your one-stop shop for all of your clothing needs. If you're a businessman and you want to upgrade that look around the office, well, Mr. Dirk can help you with that. Fantastic suits, shirts, pants, dress, shoes, belts. They got everything you need, all the accessories too. You know the other thing they have? They got really cool wallets. They've got awesome wallets at Mr. Dirk. So that's one of those little things. You want to upgrade, you use it every day. They got some cool stuff there. So check it out. Also great casual clothes as well. Mr. Dirk, just off White Avenue and 102nd Street, your one-stop shop for all your clothing needs. And boom, listen to that, Struddy. I hit it just as the theme music ended. My ad read finished. I bring you in. I'm feeling smooth this Monday, buddy. I don't think I'm going to have any pictures falling off walls destroying our podcast today. I'm all over it today, my man.
Proud of you. Well, a couple days off, right? Gets us all fired up. And even the Oilers, they have, what is it, one game in like 5 days?
Yeah, weird schedule to finish here. It's good they're getting rest, but weird schedule.
Yeah, I know you don't want to jump on this right now, but I was kind of looking over and thinking over a bunch of stuff this weekend as I was watching the Masters, and that's a slow event. You got lots of time between shots to think.
Yes.
And for the Oilers, it couldn't finish off any better, right? They have a couple games they can kind of test a couple things out, a harder game against Colorado, but then lots of time to rest. And it's not even just the physical part, it's a mental part, because they know it could be they hope it's going to be a long, hard push into the playoffs. So this mental time, 2 days off on the road, you loved your loved ones, but it's nice to be away from them too, because all you do is walk around, maybe go buy a pair of flip-flops and watch a movie. Very relaxing time for this group.
Yeah, it's a weird schedule. 2 sets of 2 days off between games on this one road trip. We're going to get to everything Oilers in a couple of minutes. Did you watch the Masters, my man?
Yeah, I tried. Odd scheduling, right? The way that, the trees falling and then
that was crazy.
The rain and and then for those guys yesterday, playing whatever it was, 30 some holes, that's a lot of golf in one day, especially that high level of intensity. I enjoyed it. I was watching it early in the day yesterday and I was like, I can't do this. This is it's too far from the end. So I kind of went away. Then I came back to watch the last 6-7 holes. How about you?
Yeah, I actually paid quite a bit of attention this year. I was able to. The schedule allowed for me to do a bunch of laying around doing sweet F all. So that was good. I don't know. It was interesting. Koepka, the live villain against Rahm. And that Rahm, the way he dialed it in that final round, he was he was throwing darts in that final round, and Koepka could not get anything going. He just had nothing going for the last 20, 23 holes. He had nothing going.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to see 2 live golfers in the top 3. I think that should promote some chatter amongst the various, the 2 different leagues or whatever they want, tours. But it was good, and Rahm was a machine. They talked about the big brute machine, and he was. And after watching, I don't know if you've seen that Netflix special with I think it's called Full Swing or whatever.
Yeah, I watched it.
I didn't like Brooks Koepka prior to that show, and he became for me a sympathetic figure, and I was actually cheering for him. Not that I was cheering against Rahm. I do like Rahm as well, but I was hoping that Koepka could find a way to get it done.
You bought into all the you can't win anymore and soul searching and trying to figure himself out, and you really felt for him, Struddy.
I actually, this is the truth. All the golfers, I didn't realize how, this is probably the wrong word, but insecure they are, because they're by themselves. Golf is really the only game where you're playing against yourself. And I think Brooks beat himself yesterday. Yeah, Rahm played well, but you're essentially, there's no one else. You're not returning shots from someone else like tennis.
Yeah,
you're not on the ice competing like a hockey or a basketball or a football, rugby, even swimming. You're kind of racing against someone else's time. Whereas in golf, it's yourself. It is just you and your game. And I think it's very unique in that way. And so I think I didn't realize how I don't think I'm using the right word, but the
How
general
isolated
feeling.
and
Yeah.
isolated and sad those players were.
Yeah. I just, it's really, I didn't appreciate it, man. Honestly,
You drank the Koepka Kool-Aid, buddy.
I'm a fan. I'm a
fine.
fan.
He's fine. He's
I'm
doing
fine.
just fine.
Yeah, but it's not about the money. It's about the winning, and winning is hard. And so, anyways, but I felt the same about a lot of the figures in that.
Did you see Koepka in the stands at the Panthers game, holding the pylon, yelling and screaming at Aaron Ekblad?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the part I didn't like about him. Right.
Karma, right there, buddy.
Yeah.
Karma.
Yeah.
So he won the live event. He won the live event. So good on you.
Yeah.
Had the Masters right there for the taking, and it absolutely just fell out of his hands, slipped between his fingers. Yeah. Had he not done what he did at that hockey game, like Brooks Koepka, you walk around every day asking people to in golf, right? There's not a lot of heckling, not a lot of chirping. You want everyone to be chill all the time. You're a professional athlete. You know how crappy it is when someone jumps all over you and you hear it, right? Now, maybe Aaron Ekblad would never even hear a word of it, but he certainly saw it on social media, certainly heard about it after the fact. So you got a pro athlete just ripping into a guy, waving a pylon around.
Yeah.
And you're a guy that walks around on a golf course in front of fans for a living. He gets whatever he has coming to him at every event he ever golfs at again for pulling that garbage. He deserves it. I want people yelling in his backswing. I want people throwing quarters at him while he's trying to swing. He deserves it, man. You're a pro athlete to go do that to another pro athlete.
Right. So you got to separate the two, because I do believe he is an arrogant asshole. Like, I'll be completely honest. But I also think when the lights are off and he's by himself in his room, I think he's quite insecure. And I think that's the part that I'm sympathetic with, because I've had those, everyone's had those feelings. And I that's why I said I didn't like Brooks Koepka prior to that show. And then he showed me a different side of him. And so I actually, listen, I'm not upset he didn't win, but if he would have won, I wouldn't have been upset either.
The vulnerable prick. Struddy.
Yeah. Good point. Well, he's trying to hide his own insecurity. Yeah. I really think there's a lot there. Well, anyways.
Not advocating for throwing things at PGA players. Don't do that. Anyways. It was fun. It was a fun finish to the Masters. Good to see Rahm win it. Okay, lots of hockey we got to get to. We're going to touch on the game against San Jose. We're going to touch on McDavid. We are live streaming here. Already a couple of comments on the stream about Derek Ryan, who was nominated for the Masterton. Spec put that tweet out today. It's been a great season for him. We'll talk a bit about Bouchard, Ekholm. We'll take your questions here on the stream as well, so you can start firing them in at us, and we'll get to those shortly. So let's get to the breakdown. Brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Got together with the brothers, Rick and Rob, over the weekend. The Junior B Knights playing at Provincials, the Sherwood Park team, and my brother Rick is the GM of that team. My nephew Carson plays on it. So got to go watch them play out in Okotoks at the Provincials. Talked a little bit of podcast business. But yeah, they are the owners and operators of DLR Vinyl. They got locations in Calgary and Edmonton. High quality, maintenance-free decking and fencing. If you've got that wood fence in your backyard or the wood deck and you're looking at it knowing you got a pile of staining and sanding coming up, you're not looking forward to it, well, think about putting some vinyl products in. I've got it in my backyard. Randine got a little ahead of herself, Struddy. All the patio furniture came out. The deck is completely set up. The solarium is completely set up. Like a couple of nice days, and she was just all over it. We actually hosted friends on the vinyl deck the other night in the solarium.
Yeah, I get it. I was kind of hot and horny to get all my stuff cleaned up. I got the bikes out of the shed, cleaned out the garage. Everything's ready to go. And I guess, have your brothers any more thought on changing the name of their company, DRY?
DLY, I think, is what you were campaigning for when you were hosting the show. No, Struds, they're not going to change the name of their company, and they're going to kindly ask that you, the paid host of this show, not butcher the name of their company. That would be what's appreciated. It's right above your head. Look above your head right now. It's hanging right above you.
I get it. It's on the back burner. They're busy guys. I get it, guys. Brothers, I understand. Have me when you want me to talk about it.
Brutal. The R in DLR is Rishaug. Like, you can't change that.
I know. It did occur to me. It did occur to me. But yeah. I listen. It's always. I got that we're in the process. We're hacking this out a little bit, figuring it out.
Oh God. Okay, 6-1 win over the San Jose Sharks. There are not many times, because you respect all opponents, and There are not many times where I would say it just feels unfair, but that game at times felt unfair. Like it felt like it was unfair the way the Oilers were manhandling him in the offensive zone, the way what McDavid was doing, skating all over the place. I mean, they dominated in that game through long, long stretches. And just another example of a team not taking anything for granted, Struds, and just going out and taking care of their business, getting the 2 points that they needed with an exclamation point. Just first and foremost, their high-quality play continues no matter who the opponent is.
First off, I don't feel bad for the Sharks at all. I played for the Oilers when that team used to just absolutely use us.
Yeah.
When they had Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau and just toy with us. And we'd give it, Ryan Clough, all these guys, we were giving it all we could. And we weren't deep enough. We weren't strong enough. Our team wasn't talented enough. And so
Oiler fans
I don't feel bad.
Can relate to that, I think, right? The Sharks have
been
doing
joy.
That to Oiler fans, yeah.
I love it. I take joy in seeing the Oilers toy with them. And that's not because I don't like the guys on the Sharks, but because I have been there. I have been toyed with and abused, and it's not fun. So we all got to get over it. It's okay. It's our time. Oilers fans and alumni, time to enjoy seeing another team get absolutely tossed around. But I would call it professional. The Oilers are very professional. They're not dropping down to the level of their opponent, right? They kept their level up. I love the way the minutes were spread out. I mean, you look at that timesheet, it was very even, and so we talked about early on about, 1 game in 5 days for the Oilers, but also you're not overtaxing anyone. I think the lowest D-man I want to say was Demers at 10 minutes. And that was kind of a feel-good story, and still get him 10 minutes in that game. Well done. That means other guys didn't have to be super taxed. Or you converse that or contrast that with the Avs that have many D-men out, and you have, I think Taves played like 30 minutes. Girard is about 25 minutes. So that's not happening with those guys. So I like that. I like the way they played. I like that the big guys got it going again. But now they have 2 games left, and this team is not just getting their game in order, but I hope they're getting their health and rest in order as they transition to it. We're like a week away from playoffs.
Yeah, it's crazy. McDavid crosses the 150 plateau, becomes the 6th player in history to do it. First since Mario in 95-96. So Esposito did it once. Mario did it 4 times. Nichols did it once. Yzerman did it once. Gretzky did it 9 times. Just to think about that for a minute. Connor, nice job. Now do it 8 more times. Just unreal what Wayne was able to accomplish back in that generation. But for McDavid to be the first to do it since 95-96 really says something. Doing it in style this season, piling in all the goals, doing it in style. I mean, the way he scored that breakaway goal, the way he drove the net on the eventual Nugent-Hopkins goal. I mean, this guy's still laying it all out there this deep into the season with the playoffs already locked up. Like, he's doing this in style, Struddy.
I'm going to be honest. I never thought we'd see a 150-point player again in the NHL. I know somewhere some mathematician screaming, "Oh, Struddy, you have no idea the numbers we're suggesting." Like, I get it. I don't sit down with
saying mathematicians sound like that? Is there a reason that you made them nasally?
Tight undies. And so, listen, I don't know. Maybe there is someone who knew that this was coming. But let's say prior to McDavid, I didn't think this would happen. I honestly did not think we'd see it. We've seen some great players come through the NHL in 30 years. Incredible, talented, incredibly great, competitors. And I didn't think we'd get to 150. Now Connor comes in, he does it. And, he can probably do it again. So it's really a testament to what he's doing now. He has help, there's no doubt. But, you could put Jason Strudwick in the same spot. He's not getting 150 points. You could put anyone in that spot. They probably won't get 150. So I can't believe I just cannot believe it. We're talking about that 150 points. And the 60, what is it? 3 or 64 goals.
64 goals, 87 assists. Yeah, 64 and 87 and 151 is what I had.
Yeah, so he's going to end up probably over 155 and over 65 goals. I never thought it. I never thought we'd have. So I think that is just, when you do something that, a lot of people, and I talked to other former NHLers too, and they're like, we never thought someone would get there. So when you're doing that, you're doing things that people do not expect from the league, not just one person. You're doing something special.
Let's get to the Weiss Johnson Sound Box. They've got 45 years in the business, so if you need a new furnace, garage heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or if you have those and need them serviced, Weiss Johnson is the place to go. 780-463-3096. They are Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, and plumbing services. So give Dennis and the great crew down at Weiss Johnson a shout. His teammates put together a nice little video with all of the previous 150 men congratulating him. Here's Connor McDavid postgame.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't put a ton of thought into it, you know, and then, you know, the guys kind of put a little video together of all the other 5 guys that have done it, and you know, kind of hit me. That was special of them to do, and to hear from all 5 was amazing.
He wasn't done there. He also talked about the quality of play that his team is putting out late in the season, just how good it's been on all sides of the puck.
You know what? I think, yeah, we're playing well. I mean, there's always the ceiling. You know, you never know how high the ceiling is, but that's what makes this game fun. You know, we're playing really well. We're putting wins together. That's all you can ask for this time of year.
7 straight wins. Points in 13 straight. Last 5 games played, Struds, 3 goals against, 20 goals for. Since they lost back-to-back games back in late February, they've won 16 of 19. I mean, they're just knocking it out of the park. And right next to Boston, best team in the league right now, probably have been better. And just all facets of their game are clicking on such a high level. I just finished doing 1260, and Tom Gazzola asked me the question, is there an area of their game where you think could be shored up a little bit heading into the playoffs? And I paused, and I'm thinking, because I want to give an answer. I don't want to just go, no, they're playing so good. You want to give an answer. So I was thinking, and I'm like, maybe Yamamoto could be scoring a bit more. But that was that's about all I could come up with. You?
Yeah, so I kind of go through the Mary Jerry's of the game. So power play, penalty kill, physicality.
Check.
You know, I think that defensive awareness, much better.
Check.
Goaltending.
Check.
That's another area. Depth scoring.
Check.
Right? So those are kind of my 6, 7 that I'm kind of evaluating. I'm sure there's others, but
I'll add one more for you. Starts.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, starts. Okay, that starts. Now, you add all those things up, and I'll just leave starts to the side of the table. If you can win most nights or be as good as the other team in most of those categories most nights, it gives you a really good chance to win the games. You know, that's just a fact. Now, their penalty kill their power play is elite. Absolutely elite. Their top 6 scoring is elite. I think their bottom 6 scoring and just the impact that group is having has really come on track. And we still aren't even talking about Ryan McLeod coming in there and the speed that he can inject and the excitement he'll bring to a lineup. You know, the goaltending seems that both goalies seem to be trending in the right direction. There's lots of reason to be optimistic about this group. But I think I like the best is their defensive play. You just said it. What was it? 3 goals in the last whatever number of games against. Now, part of that's, you know, goaltending has been good, but also it's awareness and making it hard for the other team to create offense. And it's, you know, I had a coach who said all the time, it's not so much what you take, it's what you leave. And they're not leaving the other team a lot right now. And do you have to sacrifice a bit of offense? Maybe a little bit, but they're still putting the numbers up because you're not getting counter-punched all the time. So, you know, I'm just trying to look at what are the holes. And I've been trying to punch holes in this team, and I don't see it right now. I'm excited for what this team can do in the playoffs because I feel they've hit a level of maturity at their game, Shogger, that wasn't there last year, and they had a good run last year.
It doesn't feel like, again, Tommy and I were talking about the Boston Bruins, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but it feels like there's a real sturdiness in their game in that kind of whatever happens to them, they have the ability to just sort of bite down on it and get themselves back in and to battle back. Like they're not, used to be earlier in his career, you know, bad things would happen to the Oilers, and McDavid kind of, you know, lots of times he would go and get it back, but then there were times where just sort of it was happening and he was sort of watching it happening, and he wasn't able to just go out and figure out a way to turn the tide back because it was on him, let's be honest, to figure out how to go and turn that tide back. And now it just seems like there are more players in this lineup that have the ability to step on the ice and grab some of it back for the group instead of it just being all about, are McDavid and Draisaitl going to be able to figure this out? More guys are having more of a say.
Oh, and that's what you want. You want everyone contributing in their way. Now, if you play 10 minutes, it's a little different than playing 30 minutes, but it doesn't mean your 10 minutes can't be impactful. And every minute you're on the ice, you have to think, I've got to make a difference here. Doesn't mean you have to win the game in that shift, but it means you have to have an impact in your game. So, like, go through some guys. You know, Klim Kostin, clear understanding what he has to do. I think Bukestad knows what he has to do. Derek Ryan understands what he has to do. Darnell Nurse has a much clearer picture of what he has to do, and I feel that he doesn't think he has to win the game every time he's on the ice.
He's been good lately.
He has, but I don't think we can underestimate the impact Ekholm has had on Nurse. Calm Nurse down. I think Nurse put so much pressure on himself to be the guy. I've got to do everything. I got to make everything happen. And I love that. But you know what? It's okay just to have an average shift. Just go out there, be good defensively, pass it up, make it simple. You don't have to win the game every shift. Bouchard has found a whole nother level with Ekholm. Those two guys are just absolutely rolling right along. Desharnais, do you think he not knows what his job is? He knows exactly what he has to do out there. Kulak is very clear. When you play with Desharnais, you know what your job is. It's pretty clear what your job is. So, those are just a few of the guys. And I didn't even get into the Canes or the Hymans or Nugent Hopkins. So there are a lot of players on this team that understand their role. Then there's good depth that is also pushing through. My only concern, I guess, and I've said this before, would be if there's significant injuries on defense, do they have the manpower to help out? Because right now it's 7 Bouchard, maybe 8 Demers, or Niemelainen 8, 9. We might be getting. I might have to stop doing this podcast. I might be number 9. There's some depth issues there. And if
Ryan Murray might have something to say about that.
Who's that?
Ryan Murray might have something to say.
Yeah, Ryan
We'll
Murray.
see where he gets
Ryan
to.
Murray. Ryan Murray hasn't played since before the calendar turn, so we're getting pretty deep. That's my concern. If I want to know my one concern, that's the concern: depth.
Yep. And we said that coming out of the trade deadline, right? When they moved Tyson Barrie and brought in Matthias Ekholm, they just swapped one out for another rather than potentially, adding one. And so if they run into injury troubles on the blue line, that's the one area that this team is exposed. If they run into injury troubles on the blue line, probably a top 6 forward short. But to your point, everybody's playing where they should be playing. The numbers on Ekholm are ridiculous. 19 games played with the Oilers, plus 26. He was plus 6 the other night.
That's gross.
I know the plus minus is one of those ones you kind of whatever. Who pays attention to plus minus?
No.
When you finish a game and you are plus 6, you bloody well pay attention to plus minus.
You're strutting around. Listen, I still like plus minus. I recognize there's some holes in it, but as a player, you still look at it. And like Ekholm was a D-man I wanted to be. I dreamt of being as good as him. Like, that's the guy, not the beard, but the rest. I just love it. And
the hair too. Let's be honest, Struds. You want the hair too.
I had hair. Let's see him in 15 years.
Did you just say I have hair?
Well, I had hair back then.
Okay.
Come on. I was 32 back then.
Yeah.
But honestly, he is the guy that I want. And I just love the way he plays and the way he leads and his stoutness on defense.
Oh, yeah.
The backhand pass was a little lucky. Yeah, maybe a little lucky when you're doing everything right.
That was a really nice pass. I don't think that was lucky.
You really think he did a spin around the blue line on his backhand and put it right in the guy's tape?
I think he knew what he was doing, Struds. Yeah.
I think he was putting it in an area and it happened to go right in the guy's tape. Like, let's not build up the legend of Ekholm too much. But it was a great play.
The hair, the offense, the spin around passing made everybody better. The accent, right?
Yeah, he does a lot.
Guy wants to be in Edmonton, wants to move his family here. Can't wait for winter. What?
He might be the next mayor if they win. So, yeah, he does a lot. He checks a lot of boxes. But man, the impact he's had on 25-2 cannot be underestimated. And people can say, "Oh, well, they just started playing better." It's wrong to not give some of the credit to a significant change that happened on the blue line.
Yeah.
And I think even CC, I think he's benefited because, and this isn't to say Nurse was playing badly before, but Nurse just seems to have a calm, a feeling he can just do his job and let Ekholm do his job. And everyone just kind of has calmed down back there. And that comes from a good place from Nurse. Again, this is a positive thing I'm talking about from Nurse, wanting it to be such a big part of the team, but now he's just calming down, and 14 is a big reason.
The other thing too is that Evan Bouchard is doing his job, and he's bringing the offense. And Darnell Nurse, those guys can focus on playing D. Bouchard's doing a hell of a job on that top unit power play. He's putting up points. He's got 3 goals and 14 assists in his last 17 games. So that's 17 points. If I did the counting right, I didn't have my glasses this morning. So anyway, he's pretty much point a game player here. He's taking care of his business. He's playing bigger minutes. Darnell Nurse is still the number 1 defenseman on this team. You look at the minutes played in the competition and all that. He's still the number 1 D man. But Matthias Ekholm has helped ease that up. He's taken a bite of the penalty kill. He's taken a bite of the tough matchups, the D zone starts. He's been absolutely monstrous for this team. And again, they couldn't have made a better read on what they needed and who to go and get. They added the perfect player for what they needed. And a lot of us were thinking that there were another different direction that they had to go in. And they stuck to their guns and listen, Chychrun's had some health issues out in Ottawa. So you look at that and you look at what Ekholm's done in his history of staying healthy. They seem to have knocked this one out of the park. Let's get to the Weiss Johnson mentions. Struds, I'm not sure if you've got anything there on that tweet I sent earlier, or if there's anything you want to grab. You got it in front of you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got it here from the High Sticking podcast, at sticking hashtag or underscore high. Could Ken Holland be up for GM of the year? Maybe not win, but at least top 3. Not for the trades made, but the ones he did not make. Thoughts? And that kind of builds off what you just said, Shogger.
Yeah, that's it. You know, the Quizmaster actually threw that question at me. We were chatting here over the last week or so. And I mean, the Ekholm trade definitely is right up there, and it makes you think, okay, it just depends on what the criteria looks like, right? A lot of the great work that has built this team wasn't necessarily done in this last calendar year, right? So they brought Evander Kane in, that was more last year. The Ryan Nugent-Hopkins signing, that was done, before. Zach Hyman signing, that was done before. A lot of what the Oilers have done this year, it's kind of like supplementary maneuvers that, along with everything else working out. So they re-sign Kane. They make the trade for Ekholm. They make the trade for Kostin. Janmark has been good, but lots of teams bring in depth players that are good for them. I would say the one thing that might get in the way of that would be the Jack Campbell signing. I think that will be one that people look at and go, not sure that necessarily, doesn't get in his way a little bit, Struds. And no disrespect to Jack. He's playing well right now, but big commitment, long-term, a lot of questions around it, and it didn't go well the majority of this season. I think that would probably be the strike.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, if I'm in this room, I really could care less about any awards that anyone might get. Your singular focus is on the Stanley Cup, right? Like the time for awards was 5 years ago. Right now, I think it's time about doing it. And if I'm in that room, I've trusted my GM, and he's got us this far. I think you can get a team into the playoffs. Getting them into the conversation for pushing deep into the playoffs is much harder. And you kind of you got to pick away at the edges and add. And I think that let's not forget. With Evander Kane, he let Evander Kane go to the market. He said, go talk to anybody you want. Understanding or maybe knowing that there would be nothing else that was better than they had right there. For the offer
yeah, good patience there for sure.
So, and even the Puljujärvi situation, it was not ideal. He found a way to flip him and not have to retain any money. That's another pretty good move. The Ekholm one is perfect. How many times did we talk about Gavrikov or Chychrun or Gostisbehere? None of those players would have had the impact that these guys would have had. None of them, not one of them, would have had the same impact as him. And he felt, or he knew that was the right move. So I don't know. He might, I guess he could get in there, but honestly, I don't think Ken Holland cares. He wants one prize, and that's the only one that only 20 players can get, or whatever, one organization can get altogether. And I think that, I guess it'd be nice, but if I was guessing, I don't think he gets in there, but because of Connor McDavid factor, I don't think he gets in. But honestly, I wouldn't worry about it one way or another. I wouldn't care at all.
I think it's _pie, I think, says, love the positive comments on Ekholm and recognition for his team changing D play and leadership. We crap on them a lot, because sometimes you just have to, but when they get stuff right, you got to point that out, and that's definitely the case here on the trade deadline in Ken Holland. Okay, that was the breakdown brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. In our takeaways segment today, as I subtly changed the logo over your head, our takeaway segment today, we're going to talk about the NHL standings, where the Oilers are at, the race that's happening in the West, what is going on with the Flames and Jets, and that sputter to the finish in the final playoff spots. It's going to be a really interesting finish. So, takeaways is brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC, the big, beautiful dealership just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park, the #1 GMC dealership in all of Canada for 5 years running. Have you seen the new Sierra 1500? It's spectacular. I'm lucky enough to have one sitting in my driveway, and the buying process was super easy at Sherwood Buick GMC. They got a really good staff there, really easy going. You go in and they make the process easy on you, fill in the crew over there. The financing process was really easy as well. The other nice thing, they actually have vehicles. So when you get there and you want to test drive something, they've got it for you. You can actually get into it, A lot of dealerships right now are struggling with that, but Sherwood Buick GMC, the big dealership off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park, can't recommend them enough for your vehicle buying needs, both new and used. Okay, Struddy, so as we take a look at the standings, and if I were more technically inclined, I would be able to bring up a beautiful page of the standings.
Sure.
We don't have Zuby on this podcast, so we're just going to ask you to imagine it in your head. But what you've got is the Oilers with a couple of games left, 2 points back of Vegas, and the potential to win not just a division here, but to win a conference. That's still within the Oilers' grasp. They've finished strong enough here. They put themselves right in position to do so. Vegas has 2 games left against Seattle, both of them against Seattle. They're 1-1 against the Kraken, haven't played them for a couple of months. So interesting finish for Vegas. How important do you think it is, Struds, to grab the division? And by doing so, you end up with one of either Winnipeg or Calgary as opposed to staring down the barrel of the Los Angeles Kings in the first round.
I think my priority would be how well they're playing. I think that is my number one focus.
So it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. That's my number one. I want to see the continued good play from the team. That's number one importance. After that would be the importance of getting first in the Pacific, and then probably or damn close to be number one in the conference, right? And that'd be a nice feather in your cap, but it's more about how they're playing. So that'd be secondary. The Kings, they're a good team for sure. I think the Oilers have shown in 2 games that they can play the way the Kings want to play and still be fine. I think
didn't have Fiala.
Yeah, no, and they didn't have
Anderson.
Anderson. Yeah, no, that's fair. I agree. I
mean, that's like taking, what would that be like taking out of the Oiler lineup? That'd be like taking Nugent Hopkins and I mean, really,
easy.
For the amount that he plays, I'd go one up, one of either Nurse or Ekholm. Like Anderson plays a lot on that team.
Yeah, and he plays a complementary role to Doughty, right? So he's kind of the Batman.
CC. Okay, I'll give you CC. Sure.
But no, listen, I understand, and I completely agree with what you're saying. But this team can't be fearful of anybody. They can't think we have to go and play this team or that team. Because the Flames would be an easier matchup for sure. Winnipeg, they still scare me a little bit, right? Like I think they've got a pretty good team there. I just think they got to figure it out, and maybe they can't figure it out by the end of the season. But you're right. Fiala is a huge part of this team, huge part of that Kings team. But the Oilers they've shown they're more physical than they were last year, much more physical this year. I think their power play got on track against the Kings the last game. I think their penalty kill is trending in the right direction recently. So I still feel pretty good about what they can do against the Kings. But I don't know. I think it's unlikely they get there. I think Seattle will probably win 1 game against Vegas, and then can Oilers win both their games. Maybe they can, but it's I wouldn't put it at a high percentage they're going to win the division. What about you?
Ray Lapp chimes in, by the way, Struds, pointing out that the Oilers didn't have Kane in their couple of their previous games against the Kings as well. So the Oilers were playing a little bit shorthanded against them. Yeah, listen, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think that LA is insurmountable for the Oilers. I think the Oilers are the better team. I think they're the deeper team. I think they've got better offense. The goaltending isn't going to be a huge advantage, I don't think, either way. We'll see how Skinner does under the bright lights, but I think Skinner's going to be fine. The one thing that LA has is the antidote. Not many teams have an antidote for McDavid, but they kind of do. Like, they play McDavid pretty tough. And if you look at his numbers against LA, he doesn't run roughshod that same way, right? They've got Kopitar and Deneau down the middle. That's the antidote to McDavid and Draisaitl. If you were to say, hey, pick a combination of 2 centers to go toe-to-toe against McDavid and Draisaitl, Kopitar and Deneau would probably both be in your top, Bergeron, you'd pick some other good defender, Barkov. They'd probably be in your top 5 or 6 names that you would say, wouldn't they?
Really?
Sorelli?
Yeah.
Right. They've got them both on the same team.
Yeah. So I agree.
They have that antidote, which I think could be a little nerve-wracking for other fans, but they had them last year in the playoffs too.
They did. And I get it. But, every team's going to have something. Like these are playoff teams. I think that you have to respect. Now, would it be easier against Calgary? Yes, it would be. But I'm not sure Calgary's going to make the playoffs, right? So, Winnipeg's got a couple pretty good defensemen. They've got, some pretty decent centers, but they also have a good goalie, who I think is probably better than the goalies in Vegas and in LA. So, do you want to go against a hot goalie or against a couple good centers? I'm not sure. You're gonna have to take everything on sooner or later.
How about the Calgary Flames dropping a game to Vancouver at this point in the season? Like,
I watched that game. They came out so flat, right?
what is
and then
going on?
Then they kind of get it going again, and they get in there. Then they get into the shootout, and they can't get it done. Like, it's just every time you think, oh no, hold on, okay, they're back out. Oh, they got it. I no, they're back down. Like, it's just got to be so hard for that coaching staff and that fan base there.
Yeah, man. And then you look at Matthew Tkachuk just absolutely crushing it. Crushing it. We were talking on the podcast with LeBron last week about if this should be the first year where, since a long time, now I don't have the date, so it looks bad on me, that two players finish 1 and 2 in Hart Trophy voting for the first time since a really long time ago. I think it was like Orr.
Yeah.
If this should be the first year. And the guy that might be kind of scrapping his way into that conversation next to Draisaitl is Tkachuk. Like, he's done everything that they could have asked him to do. They've won 6 in a row, largely on the back of his fantastic play. He's still scrapping and being a pain in the ass. He is not going quietly, and he's propelled Florida. So as Florida is going to make the playoffs here, most likely, we'll see. You'd have to think that he would be in that conversation too. But the Flames versus Florida, two teams that were in a similar position and completely went the opposite way. And Matthew Tkachuk, the difference maker. Is that irony? I feel like that might be irony.
I didn't think Tkachuk had this level in his game when he was drafted. I liked him. I remember watching him play in the Memorial Cup. He played for London, I think, right? And who was the GM there? Was it Hunter?
Who's that?
Who's the Hunter? Wasn't he play for London in the OHL?
I think so, yeah. I'll double check it while you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah, whoever their GM was, I remember reading an article. He was saying, people are going to underestimate this guy because, there's talk about his skating. But you can't, it was something like the fire in him is, I've never seen it burn like that before.
Yeah, 107 points in 57 games with London in the OHL.
Yeah, and then the GM or was a coach, one of them, whatever. And so they know him intimately, right? Like after watching him play and what he did. And they just talked so glowingly about him. It was like, oh, man. Then you see him play and the way he plays, and then he's kind of improved all the time, and he's such a gamer. Obviously he's got a special place in the hearts of Oilers fans for his time here with Calgary. And I think that's a compliment. Honestly, it's a compliment, man. But yeah, he's been very, very, very good for them. And unfortunately for the Flames, the return they got, hasn't quite panned out the same way, and that's quite honestly been part of their problem this year.
Raylap says, I read where Matt Tkachuk wanted an 8-year extension after his entry deal, but Calgary offered 3-year bridge. I don't know that to be fact, but that's something, right? You talk about the way you handle these assets, and you got to place bets on guys. You got to place bets sometimes. Look at the Oilers and Leon Draisaitl. Like, I wonder what the number would have been on an 8-year deal for Tkachuk coming out of entry level. And you look at what the Oilers gave Draisaitl, people kind of went, ooh, right? Everybody thought that was too much. It was too much, and he's knocked that out of the park. And Tkachuk would be knocking, no matter what the number was, he signed out of entry level, he'd be knocking it out of the park with the way that he's playing. 40 goals, 68 assists, 108 points. Friend of the podcast, too, by the way, was on Got Your Back, LeBron and Rishaug earlier this year. And he's a good interview. He's entertainment, man. I want to see Matthew Tkachuk playing in the playoffs. He's entertainment.
He's good for the game. He's good for the game. He brings some flavor to any series or game he's playing in.
All right. I think that's going to wrap the pod today, Struts. Oh, the one thing I did want to get, we had a brief comment on it earlier. But as a depth guy who understands the value of every game in the National Hockey League and how hard it is when things come to an end, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what the organization, Jay Woodcroft, Ken Holland, did for Jason Demers, getting him into a game, number 700, not just doing that, but also doing it in San Jose where it was going to be really meaningful. Yeah. If you heard his interview before the game, he talked about how when he found out he was getting in, he had to get a lot of crying out of his system.
Yeah.
Like, people don't see what goes on behind the scenes. 2 years, fist fighting to get that 700th game, knee injuries, back surgeries, going to Russia, playing for a bizarre Olympic team. This guy scrapped and clawed, and the Oilers, bottom line, the Oilers did a good thing here, but they did it respectfully.
Yeah, and the timing worked really well, obviously. Just like everything was perfect in that moment. And yeah, to get to 700 I think I ended up at like 660 or something, whatever it was. And, I was a long way to 700, but there's, to get over that mark, whether it's 499 to 500 or 599 to 600, whatever, for him to get up to 700, to do it there. And it was his chance. And during the game, they had that moment where he was able to acknowledge the crowd and just kind of say goodbye. Like I really, because he, the guy was a 6th or 7th round pick. Like he was not a first rounder. He fought for everything he got. And I think for him, it's like, he can just not die peacefully, but whenever he decides to stop playing, he can just go peacefully into that night. 700 games, played the last one, at home. I think San Jose would be his home, for as a hockey player. So I loved it. And I think Jay understands that. And I think that's why teams and players will really gravitate towards Jay and trust him that he's going to do the best thing he can for him.
This team has some heart. And we don't cheer. We just pay attention to what we see. And what I've noticed under Jay Woodcroft is that, and again, it's as much about where the players are in their lives. There are more family days around the rink where we see kids ripping around. There are more days where he opens the locker room up, a perfect little spot in their schedule where they got a tiny little break. And now you're seeing players bringing kids around, players bringing dogs around. Jay Woodcroft will even have his family sitting in the back of a press conference on a day where he's had a chance to bring some people around. I really get the sense that Woodcroft is in touch with the group and making sure that, the difficult schedule that an NHL schedule is, just seems like he prioritizes players and their families. He prioritizes things like we saw with Demers. I mean, you hear the comments from Logan Couture about the way Arizona handled Demers, how frustrated Couture was with the way Arizona handled Demers, and how much Logan Couture appreciated what the Oilers did for Demers. These sorts of things matter to players. And under Jay Woodcroft, this organization has paid attention to some details that I think, not disparaging coaches that were here before, Struds, but I sense there's some real heart going into the decision-making, and I think that's from the head coach down. What do you think about all that? Is that a bunch of foo-foo garbage I'm making up, or do you think there's something to it?
No, I might be wrong, but the first time I remember of anyone allowing players to bring their kids to a rink was Tom Rennie was with the New York Rangers. And I remember because Michael Nylander I think he has about 20 kids, all of one family. And he would bring his kids in, and Willie Nylander would skate with us. And that I couldn't believe it. These guys were on the ice. I'm like, I was 30 years old. I'm like, what the hell are these guys doing out here? But because I was so shocked, I'd never seen it before. I'd never seen anyone else. I knew people had kids, but I didn't see anyone allowing their kids to come out and skate with us after practice. And I got to say, after about 10 minutes, I loved it. It just changed the whole vibe. We were all skating. We were doing drills with them. Then, Willie Nylander was better than me in everything we did. And he was only like 11 years old, but I loved it. And I always look back and thought, man, I wish other coaches would have allowed those people to come around. And then I remember a guy named Billy Neiman, his son would come around. He was just a tiny little guy, and he would just run all over the rink. And Perry Perrin, one of our assistant coaches, loved the sweet treats. And Perry showed him where his treats were in the coach's room. Well, this guy remembered where it was. And when the coaches go on the ice, he'd go in there and steal candy from Perry's stock. And Perry just loved it. And Perry could be a little bit grumpy sometimes, but everyone loved it. Like, how much candy? Oh, he took 3 bars. I counted. It just changes the dynamic in the room, especially when things are going tough. And I know it's hard to bring people in when things are going tough. That's when I think you need the most. And that was the value of Joey Moss. When things are going rough, that's when you needed Joey the most. Mm-hmm. So what Jay's doing, and I've heard about it, I've seen it. I love it so much. And I wish I would have had that as a player more often. Now, and my kids weren't old enough. When I was playing, I went to Sweden, and I had my 2 babies, and I bring my son, my oldest son was not even 8 months old. I bring him in the room as just a load of nothing. But the kid, they pass him around, and they loved having him there, right? So it just changes dynamics. So Schauger, I love it, and quite frankly, I'm very jealous.
I think it's meaningful, and I think the players appreciate it. I think it creates a good vibe in the room. I have to say too, I'm going to give them a plug here. So on Oilers Plus, they have their documentary series called The Drop, or whatever. They're behind the scenes series on The Drop. And if people haven't seen it, Evander Kane did a gender reveal on the ice because he and his partner are expecting. And they had Connor McDavid come out and put a puck down on the ice And Evander Kane took a slap shot and the puck exploded, and it was, I can't remember what color it was now. I'm going to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. Was it blue? Was it pink?
I thought it was pink. I don't know.
Either way, congratulations to them.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And the drop showed it. They had it all on the thing. And I watched it and I was like, that's pretty cool that, the way they did that. So, the way Evander Kane's had his family present. They're always down at the rink. We see them down there quite a bit. It's just a feel that Jay Woodcroft has tried to put out there. One of the little details that I think as these players grow and mature and get married and have kids and their families are made to be part of it, I think those are meaningful things. And so the Demers thing comes from that same place. The Matt Berlin getting in for a short period of time in that game, the goaltender, that comes from a similar type of place. The families being around all the time, Ben Stelter and the way the organization embraced that young man and his family and continues to. There's some heart here. And I think that stuff should be acknowledged when it happens. The other thing I do want to say, Struds, on Kane, I'm not going to speak too far out of turn here. Because listen, there were a lot of questions when Evander Kane arrived, and I think a lot of fair questions and a lot of fair concerns. And we did our jobs and asked those questions. But there's another conversation to be had about what's going on in the here and now. And for Oiler fans out there that don't realize this, I do think it's worth acknowledging. It's been described to me that Evander Kane does as much or more in the community as any other player on this team. He is constantly doing things. And he does them behind the scenes. Like, they've made the odd one public here and there, but being around the rink as much as we are, you see just how much is going on around Evander Kane. And I just think it's fair to him to acknowledge that. He's doing a lot. There have been some real tough happenings in our city over the last couple of months. And again, I don't want to talk out of school here, but Evander Kane has been on the front lines of meeting families and giving people hugs and doing meet and greets and charitable endeavors and such. So I just think it's important to acknowledge that because, yes, there were a lot of questions coming in, but in the here and now, his impact, it would look to me like he's really making an effort to have a positive impact.
He's been a model citizen and more, right? And Edmonton, he's embraced Edmonton and Edmonton's embraced him, and both on and off the ice. And what more can you ask? I think that playing in a city like Edmonton is different than playing in a city like LA or New York. It just is. It's more intimate. People see you more driving around the city. They see you more in those settings. And Evander Kane's done a lot of good things. And I love that, that tradition that he's starting. And the young players are going to see him doing that. The Brobergs, Skinners, McLeods, all these, even Yamamoto, will see him doing that. It's his time. He's taking his time to do these things. And I'm a huge fan of people that do that in the communities because you have a huge impact. You don't realize the impact you have on people, even years later. So I've been really impressed with Evander, and I've heard a couple things too, and I'm very, very impressed by him.
Yeah, and they're not trying to put it out there publicly for everybody to see because they want it to be real and they don't need to. But I do think we're behind the scenes and we have the ability to see some of what goes on. And I can tell you, like, immediately following a game here in the last couple of weeks, Evander Kane, I saw him walk out to a family that was standing there, and a family that had been going through a real tough time. And, he asked who one person in particular was and just gave them a huge hug. And there's Oilers staff standing there, with tears in their eyes. This is immediately following a game. And I've seen a number of these things with Evander Kane. So the group in general, I think, does a really good job. But Evander Kane has been leading the way in a number of ways on this front. And I just think it's important to acknowledge that. All this positivity, the journalist in me is like, it's too much. Yeah. You're laying it on too thick. But I mean, listen, it's real and it's worth acknowledging.
Yep. Let's see. I mean, now, they've got another week, like I said, to kind of get their game dialed in. Still, fingers crossed, stay healthy. And then the true tests begin. What you've done in the regular season doesn't matter, right? Because teams will game plan for you, get ready. Someone gets hot. I'm looking forward to it, man. I got to tell you, I'm looking forward. I want this city just to blow up and be excited. I remember that as a young man or young kid. And I hope my kids and all the kids in Edmonton have the same type of run again.
Yep. I cheer for the easiest travel. That's what I cheer for.
Yeah, I know. So, so selfish.
Let's go Flames. I mean, a nice, easy, let's go Oilers and Flames, because if the Oilers grab the division and the Flames squeak in, that's a heck of a lot easier than a flight down to Winnipeg or LA or something like that. So that's where my impartiality ends. How hard is the travel going to be?
Yeah, I love it. At least you're honest.
Yeah, good job today, Struds. Thanks, my man.
Likewise, talk soon.
Yeah, we'll check in later this week. That is Jason Strudwick. Big thanks. Oh, look at that. My shot's off center. I got to adjust my camera on the fly here. Big thanks to all of our sponsors. Mr. Dirk, DLR Vinyl Products, Sherwood Buick GMC, and Weiss Johnson as well. And a big thanks to all of you for joining us on the live stream. We love your comments and your questions. Love doing these live streams so we can get a little bit of listener interaction. Oilers in action. A big game coming up against Colorado Avalanche. Struds and I'll drop another pod following that one. So stay tuned and keep an eye on all of our social media feeds. Have yourselves a fantastic Monday, folks. Hope your Easter was great. We'll talk soon.